Pro Boxing Fans here with Dev, Sahni. Dev, I'm not sure how to introduce you. You're the MC. You know, you do stuff on the top table. You're a presenter, carry out interviews. Mate, you're everywhere. Now you're the stand-in for Frank Warren, George Warren, Francis Warren. So now everyone seems to be interviewing you. So I thought, you know what? Let me talk to you. How are you? You all right?
I think I'm just the annoying little fella that pops up on Queensberry stuff. I think that's generally me. I'm all right. Look, PBF. No, I mean, I've seen you, I've seen you do them all. I've seen you do Boxing Social, Behind the Gloves, yeah? Fight Hype, remember that? Remember you and Razza running about for Fight Hype, and now here you are at PBF. Who's it next week? Who you got lined up?
It's PBF, mate. So the Pro Boxing Fans, respect to the guys that are Pro Boxing Fans. Yeah. Show me a lot of love. But yeah, let's talk about why we're here. Telford, of all places, obviously. Queensberry has held a few shows here in the past. Liam Davies, great fight against Mark Leach last time around. A lot of people had Leach to win that fight because he had come off a great win against Chris Bulk at your call. But this time around, he's in a tough fight. Baluta has been around, obviously stopped David Oliver Joyce in his tracks when he was on the rise. Obviously beat TJ Delaney, fought Michael Conlan, and Michael Conlan's a different beast. But what do you make of this fight for Liam Davies?
Tough fight, but he loves it. These are the sort of, he loved the Mark Leach fight when people were picking Mark Leach to beat him. This is perfect. You've got to think of the progression that he's had in his career. He's been an English champion at bantamweight, British champion at super bantamweight. The next step is the European. There could be like an easier guy to fight for it, and he's ended up with this nutcase called Ionut Baluta. And you've seen what Baluta can do, all the things that you mentioned, and also coming off a win against Brad Foster. So he's no stranger to being in the away corner, with fans jeering him, with fans calling him names, which I'm sure they're going to do on Saturday. He's no stranger to that. He loves it. So it's a tough fight for Liam Davies. But Liam Davies is looking very good right now. A lot of people weren't picking him to beat Mark Leach. And Mark Leach had very good wins. So it'll be a big moment for him if he is able to pick this win up.
Dave, you love the top table. You love it when they're having a go at each other. You're in the middle. You're sort of instigating, slowly setting traps up. You do like that, don't you?
I love it, mate. I needed one like that today because the last one I had was Zach Parker and John Ryder, two very lovely men who aren't going to say anything bad about each other and refuse to say anything bad about each other. So I needed a little bit of Baluta going mad and Liam Davies banging the table and getting his fans jeered up. It adds some spice, right? It's got me more hyped for the fight. The face-off at the end, Baluta doing all that. That's your thumbnail now, isn't it? I know I shouldn't do these stupid faces, but yeah, it's a good fight. I love mixing it up and stirring it up.
Got to talk about the beast from the east, Anthony Yarde. Obviously making an appearance on the show. We know it's been a frustrating year for him. This Artur Beterbiev fight was supposed to happen. Fortunately, boxing is boxing. Injuries can happen. But he's here against a valid opponent, somebody who's got a winning record, got big hands, down behind as the records show. But this is it. He just can't lose fight. It's a can't lose fight for him for that big fight.
Can you imagine I can't even imagine him losing, right? But imagine like he looks bad against Stephanie Koikov. Imagine he gets hurt. Imagine he gets dropped. Imagine he loses rounds to this guy, and he's got Artur Beterbiev coming up, who is the best, in my opinion, the best light heavyweight in the world. That's between him and Bivol, obviously, but he's an absolute monster. So this is the fight before the fight. And you could forgive Anthony Yarde and the team for going with someone who's maybe got a losing record, maybe coming with several losses on the record, and you could forgive that, knowing that the Beterbiev fight's next. But he's picked a guy here who's come over and seems to have a little something about him. I don't know if you've had a chance to interview him yet, or
I haven't. No. I've spoken to him off camera.
Yeah, he's got something about him, and up there he's saying, there's definitely going to be a knockout. I agree. I mean, I'm hoping that's an Anthony Yarde knockout, but it's the quiet ones you've got to watch out for, and he's quiet, and let's see. I think that's put Anthony Yarde's. It's injected something in him. If he had someone in front of him who's just going to lay down, I don't know if he'd have the same fire, but he knows he needs to go in there, get this fella out there, and beat his chest, and Beterbiev awaits.
2022 hasn't been a great year in regards to seeing these big fights, these mega fights. We've been disappointed as fans have shown online. I'm not going to question you on that right now, but no one is doubting how good a fight Anthony Yarde versus Artur Beterbiev is. It's a huge fight. Obviously, we're hearing end of January. We're hearing it's in Wembley. Is there anything you can confirm for us and maybe make that announcement for us right now?
The thing is, I just checked YouTube and Anthony Yarde just pretty much just said it to everyone. So I think speak to him, watch those interviews. If not, wait for an announcement on Saturday, and hopefully it's all systems go for that. And what a fight! You talk about this. This is one of those fights where you've got the British guy who hits very, very hard, who is in a completely different space to what he was in when he fought Kovalev. That was 2019. That's 3.5 years ago, and there's been additions to the camp. There's more lions. James Cook is there now. He's had losses. He's had comeback wins. He's got the fire about him. He's had stuff going on in his personal life. You're looking at a completely different man, in my opinion, now heading into this, and I think he's ready. And Artur Beterbiev, coming off an injury, 38 years old. Okay, there doesn't look to be much of a blueprint out there as to how to beat him, but some fighters have had a bit of success. Callum Johnson had success. That's the obvious thing to point to, right? Callum Johnson knocked him down, and maybe he could have finished him. He didn't. If Anthony Yarde gets him in any sort of trouble like that, have no doubt that he'll finish him. This is different to the guy that fought Kovalev. This is an Anthony Yarde coming off a win against Lyndon Arthur, where people were backing against him, where people were thinking, yeah, same again, you won't get past the jab. He just walked right through him. I'm not going to say he's walking right through Artur Beterbiev. He'll have to go through fire. But timing. Everything is timing. It's not my words, they are the words of Tunde Ajayi. But you've got Yarde at 31, Beterbiev at 38, coming off injury, heading into the UK for that fight. Sometimes the stars align, and we're hoping that's the case.
You do use a lot of cliches, don't you? You do like it.
It only takes one punch, doesn't it? At the end of that, wow, it's boxing, isn't it?
But yeah, great fight. Hopefully Anthony does what he needs to do on Saturday night, and I'm not trying to. I do want to, just because I want to see that fight with. I think everyone in this room wants to see that fight. Do want to move on slightly. Got to talk about True Geordie. I know you. There's not. I know you've spoken about him in the past, but I do want to talk about that interview that he did with Tyson Fury. Obviously, Tyson towards the end seemed like he didn't like it, cut it off. True Geordie made a bit of a joke of it. Since then, things haven't gone right for True Geordie, but we'll talk about that afterwards. But what did you make of that interview with Tyson Fury?
So, I think there's a few things, right? And that's what I've said to other people as well. I don't think there's any problem with asking Tyson Fury about KSI, about the Conor Benn situation, or general news events in boxing. That's fine. You can do that. He started with it, and that was the problem. He didn't even ask how he was. Certainly not on camera. I'm not one to tell True Geordie how to interview. He has interviewed many high-profile people. He's got a big fan base himself, and all I can point to is the way it ended may have been partly because of the way it started. So it started with him asking about KSI, Conor Benn, and then he basically told Tyson Fury in 10 or 15 ways that he didn't like his fight with Derek Chisora, and as he'd done a ton of hits, of course. Tyson Fury, saying everything that he said at the end, he'd done a ton of hits, but it just sort of felt like it wasn't an interview at one point. An interview's a kind of an agreement between two people. Hopefully you both come away with it, with something, and I don't know, it just sort of turned into an interrogation, and he's not a promoter, Tyson Fury. You put those questions to Frank maybe, and he can answer them, but Tyson Fury is the fighter. This is his next fight. It's done, it's in there. What does he want him to do? Cancel the fight because True Geordie says he doesn't like it. So that was my issue with that. Regarding the other stuff, look, I'm not going to speak on that. I don't agree with jumping around and kicking people while they're down. He's obviously going for it, so I'm sure he'll get through it.
That's fine, yeah. I wasn't even going to ask you about that, but that's cool. Do you want to talk about, whilst we're talking about...
By the way, he's blocked me on Twitter, True Geordie. I'd never tweeted him. I put out one tweet afterwards. Blocked me on Twitter. Just because like people like you were tagging me in, like saying, "Oh, Dev Sahni thinks True Geordie's." Like, oh.
Listen, I've not said anything. I asked you a very valid question, and you've answered it in a valid way. So there's nothing wrong with that. Talking about YouTubers and somebody who's making names in the boxing scene is Jake Paul. We've seen what happened in Dubai. John Fury taking his top off, going after Jake. Jake standing there quite calm. There's been a back and forth between Tommy. There's talks at the fights being agreed. We've heard it many times. Whatever else, but. Is this the fight that we just need to see and just pass this chapter now?
We need to see it now, right? It can't not happen at this point. It's been scheduled in the past, and everything that happened over in Dubai has built the fight. That's something that Tommy can take away from it. I know it turned into an exhibition. I know there's all sorts of stuff with the weight and whatnot, but one headline that emerges from all of it is that Jake Paul and Tommy Fury have to fight now. At this point, it's too big to turn your head away from. The fact that major media outlets like Sport Bible, for example, a huge digital footprint, they would just put up a picture of John Fury topless trying to attack Jake Paul. That tells you the size of the fight, the size of the characters involved in the fight, and it's too big to not happen now at this point. And hopefully it gets done, because it's an absolute monster. It's a big fight that now.
Do you want to talk about, and I do want to sort of relay this into two questions. First of all, I'm going to talk about the main guys from Queensberry promotion, and probably Anthony Yarde, for example. Frustrating year for him. Should have had this fight with Artur Beterbiev a lot earlier. Injuries happen, hasn't happened. So you guys take the brunt as well, because you've not got to see Anthony Yarde push him out to fights as many times as you wanted. Daniel Dubois, same thing. For earlier on this year, did win the WBA regular, but wasn't on one of your shows. How much of an impact has this had on Queensberry, first of all? And then I'll talk about my second question. But how much of an impact has it had? Because we're not getting to see the main fighters from the promotional outfit out as many times as fans want to see, which means that the fans are suffering because they're not getting to see good cards, maybe.
I think with those particular examples, you've got to look at the position that these fighters are in, where it would be silly, really, to schedule in a fight beforehand. So Daniel Dubois was lined up to fight Trevor Bryan for that WBA title. You don't really try and do anything before that, and so that's happened now. He's become the WBA World Heavyweight Champion, and he fights on the Tyson Fury undercard at Tottenham Stadium. It's not too bad a time to be Daniel Dubois, by the way, and he's also he's very he's top of the list for the WBA. So in terms of that, I think he's doing perfectly fine, and for anyone who's missed him, you get to see him in a couple of weeks, so don't worry about that. With Anthony Yarde, the fight was meant to happen in October last year, and he hadn't boxed since December. And of course, with that October date, there were options. Maybe you slip one in beforehand as well. What if you get injured? What if the opportunity gets lost? What if Beterbiev schedules an undisputed fight with Bivol, and then Bivol wins the belts, and suddenly they're over there? And sometimes you've got to be clever about these things. You've got to be smart. The fight's been moved to January now, it looks like, and he is going to get one in. So you are going to get a chance to see Anthony Yarde Saturday, Telford, 7 o'clock BT. Don't miss it.
I think just like sort of looking on social media and stuff, it seems like 2022 has been a bad year for boxing in regards to we've not got to see the big fights, the mega fights. I'm talking about the Errol Spence versus Crawfords, the Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Furies, and generally there hasn't been many cards that have stuck out. Obviously in regards to Queensberry, we saw Joyce Parker, which was fantastic, but there isn't many that would pull in a casual, for example. And I was listening to TalkSport, they made a very valid point, Simon Jordan, Adam Cattrall, a few of them on there, saying that maybe people are getting pushed over to the exhibition YouTube scene because boxing isn't that compelling at this present time. It hasn't pulled in the casuals for any fights of note in this year. Do you agree with that notion?
I don't know, I can see where that point is coming from, and I can see obviously the rise in this exhibition stuff. This exhibition stuff, I don't know how long it's going to be around. I don't think it'll be around forever. I think it's going to be one of those things that pops up for a couple of years. Some people make some money, and then it probably disappears, because the intrigue of that is, for me anyway, just starting to wear off a little bit. Like some of this stuff I can't, like this misfit stuff, completely goes over my head, but there's obviously an audience for it. I think boxing will always have its place. Sometimes boxing needs to do better and get fights made. and all you can do is try. I think Fury against White sold out Wembley Stadium, 94,000 people. That was this year. That was that was between Queensberry and Matchroom, so to speak. It had all of that about it. That was a huge hype fight. I think Anthony Joshua fighting Alexander Usyk, that was a big fight. But I get what you're saying. It would be nice to have seen Errol Spence against Terence Crawford. Maybe it's all still to come. Sometimes they wait these fights out until it's worth more than ever. And this whole email, Twitter exchange that happened between Crawford and Spence and all of that stuff, all builds the fight. Right? It all builds the fight. It's frustrating, but once that poster lands saying it's on, you're like, oh yeah, remember the Twitter stuff? And it just adds more and more to it. You look at Manny Pacquiao against Floyd Mayweather, and they were sort of flirting for years about fighting, and maybe they fought when they were past their best a little bit, but it was the perfect time to strike commercially because it did record numbers, right? And they both made a lot of money out of that, and the interest in the fight didn't wane over the 5 years. It's not like if you'd have made it 5 years before and it would have been, oh yeah, everyone's going to buy it. The interest grew because they were just forever linked and the storylines are linked. So that's in boxing's defence. Sometimes it builds a fight better. There's exhibitions out there, there's UFC. People talk about how UFC, etc. They make all the best fight the best and all that. Do you need that all the time, or do these fights need bit building so that fighters make a bit more money and the fans have got the ultimate sort of, they're chomping at the bit because they want to see it so much?
I don't know. I'm a UFC fan. I watch a lot of it, and sometimes just the best fighting the best is enough hype. It doesn't need to be built. So it can be worked both ways. But final question for myself. The good man that is Simon Jordan. Obviously listened to a lot of his stuff, interviewed him in the past. Looking to dabble into the boxing industry. Now, he was on the way here, I was just listening into TalkSport, and someone asked him, well, buy my club, all these funds are. So I've asked him, he said, no, I want to concentrate on boxing. He said, I'm looking to either buy a company or even manage. What would you make of Simon Jordan potential inclusion into the boxing industry?
Welcome it. I mean, he's a great talker. Clearly knows the sport. It's not like someone who's just popped up and started talking about the stuff that's hot. When you listen to his podcast with Spencer Oliver, he's been at so many fights over the years. He's got a great knowledge of the sport. Him being a voice in the sport is welcome. Him trying to get involved and, I don't know, maybe be a promoter or something. Why not? I think I like him. So that's not just me trying to get a job or something. But yeah, no. Look, I think he's a welcomed addition to boxing, and I've enjoyed his sudden emergence in the last few weeks. He just seems to be sending people to hell every day. Every day, someone gets it. Even if it's Spencer Oliver, like the way he talks to him sometimes on the pod is amazing. But yeah, he's good fun.
For sure. Dev, it's a pleasure talking to yourself. No doubt I'll speak to you in the future. I've taken up a lot of your time. I know you were busy working or looking to work. Make yourself look busy, but yeah.
That's the key. That's the key. Just make yourself look busy. Sort of walk around from point to point with purpose. That's what I do.
Dev Sahni, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much for talking to pro boxing fans. Top man.
Cheers, mate.